is unleashed. Your power is unleashed. When you prioritize training in the dark, your power is unleashed. Now remember, verse 16, Jesus would withdraw and spend time with the Father in prayer. Right. Verse 17, let me read it one more time. See if we can see the power being unleashed. I have to show you in the Word. Verse 17 says, while he was teaching, his problems were just sitting there. They had come from every village of Galilee and from Judea and Jerusalem. Now the third part, the last sentence in verse 17. And the power of the Lord was with Jesus to heal the sick. So that was power that Jesus had after spending a long time with the Father. Yeah. Would you believe that the Gospels only record 3 times that Jesus went alone with the Father? Now, I know he did it much more often than that, but the Gospel only tells us 3 specific times where he went alone in the dark and trained and worked on his prayer. Not that he had to learn how to do it, but he was communicating with the Father, receiving from the Father, pouring out to the Father. 3 times. Come on. 3 times. The first time we already dealt with. The first time is Luke chapter 5, verse 16. We've already read that. He would often slip away. And we've just seen in verse 17, the power was there to heal. That's the first time. The second time is Mark chapter 1, verse 35. Mark chapter 1, verse 35. So you have Luke 5:16, and then you have Mark 1:35, and the third and final time is Luke 6:12. Luke 6:12. Luke 5:16, Mark 1:35, and Luke 6:12. Those are the only 3 times in the gospel where it talks about Jesus went off to an intimate place alone to pray and to train in the dark with his Father. It is my job to show you all 3 of those times resulted in power. That's my job. The first one we already dealt with. We already seen verse 17, the power was there to heal me. The second one, Mark chapter 1, verse 35 says that early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, went to a solitary place to pray. Early in the morning, while it was still dark, he went to a solitary place to pray. That's Mark 1:35. 4 verses later, in Mark chapter 1, verse 39, it shows Jesus having power to drive out demons. Just 4 verses later, after he goes to a solitary place to pray, in the dark, 4 verses later, the power is there for him to drive out demons. In Luke chapter 6, verse 12, Luke chapter 6, verse 12, it talks about one of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. That's Luke chapter 6, verse 12. 7 verses later, in Luke chapter 6, verse 19, 7 verses later, it says so much power was coming off Jesus that people was trying to touch him to get healed. So every last time it talks about Jesus going to a solitary place to spend time with God, every last time within 1 to 7 verses, you see power being unleashed. That tells me if I would prioritize my quiet time, if I would prioritize going off to a dark, lonely place with God, power can be unleashed in my life. The reason is, power is tied to you being connected to God. Yeah. That's what power is tied to. You have no power in and of yourself. That's right. You are, if you are a Christian, you are an extension cord. That's it. Yeah. You is not an outlet. That's it. You are not an outlet. You are an extension cord. Yeah. You can plug into an extension cord and get power if that extension cord is plugged into an outlet. Because the power is coming from the outlet. Yeah. I dare you to take an extension cord that's just laying by itself and try to plug into it. Nothing will happen. And that's what some of us are. As believers, we refuse to go to a dark, lonely place and plug into the power source. We're just an extension cord out there by itself. If you're not routinely spending time with the power source, there is no power in you. So that's one reason why you should spend time with him for power. Because you are not the source of power. You're just an extension of it, which means you need to be connected to the power source. The second reason is There is no way on this side of heaven, there's no way you can embody infinite energy or infinite power. Yeah. In other words, if you get a feeling, if you have a high service in the Lord on a Sunday, that power will drain out. It's not infinite. It's only finite. It will run out. You have to keep recharging your batteries. Yeah. iPhones, I just recently got an iPhone 6, and I was just blown away how it holds power in that battery. Much better than my Android. There's a pro Android person over there. But no matter how good the iPhone is, if you're not plugged into the source, it will eventually drain down. And that's how we are. If you don't fan into flame that power, it will eventually drain down. Where's my cookers at? How many people know how to barbecue, know how to work a grill? Any cookers in the house? You can make the biggest fire you want on that barbecue grill. If there's no oxygen feeding it, it will burn out. For those who don't know about barbecuing, oxygen is what feeds the fire. Yeah. We sit out there, the kids like when we set that fire, don't they? We set it, we put the lighting fluid on it, and it makes a big fat fire. And the kids, they love to see it. But it would eventually die out without oxygen. Oxygen is what feeds the fire. When it comes to your power, a long time with God is what feeds your power. Yeah. If you don't fan at the flame with oxygen, if you don't fan at the flame that gift, that power, it will eventually dwindle out. I like that, but show me in the Bible. I'm glad you asked. Y'all are so biblical here. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 6. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 6. This is the Apostle Paul talking to Timothy. He told him, fan into flame the gift of God. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power. So Paul is connecting power to something you have to fan into flame. You don't just get the gift. You don't just get the power and it's done. No, you have to keep fanning that thing into flame. You have to keep fueling it. And if you want your power fueled, if you want it unleashed, then you have to spend time training in the dark. Amen? Amen. So that's verse 17. Verse 17 tells us that if we will prioritize training in the dark, our problems will decrease, our prosperity will increase, and our power will be unleashed. I close with this true story. True story of an African community, a real African community centuries ago. The gospel came to this community brand new. They was newcomers to Christianity. And they really caught hold of this quiet time thing. Because one thing they took from the gospel is we need to spend time with the Master. So the people in this community would routinely go to a dark place in the woods and spend time with prayer and isolation with